We will start in a couple of minutes. Good evening. Can you hear me? And I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes.
Great. Thank you each and everyone for being with us on the Product Leadership Festival hosted by the Institute of Product Leadership. I am Menaka, and on behalf of the Institute, I am very pleased to welcome you all to this keynote sessions tonight. Today is the fourth and final day of the leadership edition of the festival. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you for making this festival a successful one. We have enjoyed bringing to you practitioner experts from all over the world to share their wisdom with you over the product, data, and design editions of the festival. And we are now here on the fourth leg, the leadership edition. In case you missed our previous festivals, please check out this URL for the recording of all the sessions. If you missed it, we have made it available for you. 30 plus keynote sessions here, videos.productleadershipfestival.com. Please check it out. Now, many of you might know us by now, but for the benefit of people who are new here, let me introduce the Institute to you. We are a global B school for technology and product innovators. The Institute pioneered building a strong product ecosystem in India. We have 2,000 plus successful alumni heading high-performing teams and products all over the world. We are also knowledge partners for 220 plus organizations. We have partnered with 3 universities in India and the University of Houston in the United States. We specialize in high quality, high value training for product, data, design, and strategy professionals. You can find more about us on our webpage. Please find the webpage on your chat window. Coming to the agenda for today, I'm very excited about the keynote sessions tonight. We start at 8 p.m. and we end the sessions at 10 p.m. There are 2 sessions. The first session starts at 8 with Stephanie Mango, Senior VP, CGI, and the second session is by Rajesh Sethi, Entrepreneur Advisor. So between these sessions, there will not be any gap. So make sure that you stay with us throughout. Do not miss this opportunity. These are great personalities that are talking to you tonight. Now, what you see on the screen is the way to win some exciting prizes. So rank higher on the leaderboard by scanning the QR code and referring your friends and family. So you can win a one-on-one mentoring session with our speakers. Don't miss this. I will give you a moment to scan the QR code. Alternatively, you can find the URL on your chat window as well. Now, for the first session, if you have any questions, which I am very sure that this is a great opportunity for you to interact with the speaker and get your questions clarified. So I strongly suggest you scan this QR code. This QR code takes you to the dedicated LinkedIn thread for this speaker, the first speaker, Stephanie. So scan this, keep it ready, ask your questions only on the LinkedIn thread, which we are giving here. So this is important because if you put your questions on the chat window, there is too much of chatter and we might miss it. And Stephanie may not even see your questions. So please keep this ready. URL you can find on your chat window as well. Now we have with us Tarun Nagarwala, CEO and co-founder of Cultinetics. Tarun is the moderator of the first session. Tarun is currently leading a bootstrap startup, as you can see, in the mental well-being space in Bangalore. As the co-founder and chief hustler, he drives the growth of the business using his rich experience in sales and leadership. He is our alumni from the Executive MBA batch of 2017. Please join me in welcoming Tarun. Tarun, very, very happy to have you with us. Could you please come on video and I will hand the session over to you.
I switched on the video a couple of seconds back. Tell me if you can see me. Can you hear me? Okay, loud and clear.
I can hear you very well.
Okay, can you see me too?
Yes, yes, perfect, perfect. Tarun, over to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Menka. Thank you for that introduction. That was, I think, quite um, kind of you to say those lovely words to me. I'm just trying my level best to see how we can raise the awareness and adoption of mental wellness in India through our company. And I think the lineup of discussions that you have for the evening is quite interesting. And the topic of discussion right now, niche products in an unpredictable world, is I think the most one of the most relevant topics to discuss today. I'm wrapping my mind around it as we speak, and during these unpredictable times, these open up a plethora of opportunities for us, but at the same time, it's also quite easy to be lost. How not to be lost is what we want to learn today. And who else to learn it from than from Ms. Stephanie Mango? Stephanie is a senior vice president at CGI who leads development and execution of business and solution strategy for a diverse client portfolio in the US federal government. She's been with the IT industry for more than 25 years now, and in many roles across products and services. She has a rich experience across the development lifecycle for custom solutions as well as commercial off-the-shelf solutions. Now, and, I think she uses all her program management skills to not just create these plans and strategies, but to implement them and then go ahead and support them. That requires a tremendous amount of time management capabilities and a lot of emotional strength to dabble with end-to-end client support. And she spent over a decade leading product organization, and today she leads a geographically dispersed team developing and delivering solutions, and is going to talk about leading and innovating in an unpredictable world. But before I give the stage to Stephanie and we'll listen to what she has to teach us today, and we converse with her, I would like to run some interesting polls that I see Sonal and Menka come up with. So why don't we ask that? So I think the first poll is up. We have 30 seconds to take this poll. The question is, do you multitask when attending a meeting online? Interesting answers.
Meanwhile, Stephanie, could you please come on video?
So we started seeing a lot of yes, I'm guilty, and yes, I'm guilty is going down, and we see no, I'm 100% focused, taking lead. No, we got sometimes, and yes, I'm guilty. All right. So
we have our work cut out for us.
All right. What happened? So this is okay. So who won? Sometimes won. All right. So people are honest. Oh, can we run another poll? We have one more question. So can we run that? Okay. The question is, what do you think is the most serious issue the world faces today? The options are food and water security, mental wellness, climate change, coronavirus, others. Top of the mind. coronavirus.
Yeah.
Okay. Climate change, still a problem, mental wellness, and then food and water security. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this poll. The insights that we receive help us increase awareness towards things that bother us the most. With that, I'll take a pause and I'll hand over the stage to Stephanie, and we learn along with her. I have a few questions for her that I've prepared, but I think after going through presentations, we'll have some more exciting questions. Also, audiences, please note down your questions and put them on. I think there is a place to put your questions on the chat window or in the Google Docs. Please go ahead and upload your questions, and we'll take as many questions as we can. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Tarun. And interesting polls there. I would have expected mental wellness to be higher, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning. I'm very excited to be here and have this opportunity to share some insights I've gained throughout my career. And Manaka, are you putting up the slides for me? Excellent. Thank you. Okay. And you can go ahead and go to the first slide. So we're here today to talk about leadership. And I was talking to my 8-year-old the other morning, and she asked me about what we had done before when there were other pandemics. How did I handle missing school and friends when I was growing up and had to stay at home in these stay-at-home orders? And when I told her we have never experienced anything like this before, she didn't believe me at first, and so we had to talk through that. And then she was kind of thoughtful and said, well, then Mommy, how do you know what to do? If it's never happened before, how do you know what to do? You always know what to do. And then I got a little thoughtful. I work hard to not treat my kids like kids. I lead them like I lead a team with transparency, empathy, and trust. So how should I respond? Should I admit I have no idea what to do? Should I pretend that you just know these things as you get older and try to get out of the conversation as quickly as I could? And so I decided to stick with my rules and said, well, I learn all the time. I read everything I can. I listen to everyone that I think through all my options, and then I decide what to do. And then here is the most important part. I pay attention to how my decision is working out. And if it isn't working, I'm comfortable admitting I'm wrong and making a different decision and changing course. And Mommy's always thinking ahead to the future. You can always change course if you keep listening and learning. I attempted to explain the economic theory of sunk costs that you should use when you're making decisions. And we went down a very interesting path of Minecraft, which I won't bore you with that story. But in the end, it's all about being decisive, understanding your environment, and being willing to change. Let's go to the next slide. So what's my point? That's my point. When you want to lead in challenging times, you need to understand who you are leading, what environment they're in, and constantly evaluate the current state and the future state. So how do we apply this to product management? Well, if you want to differentiate your product and yourselves as leaders, it requires a few different habits, and that's what we're going to spend some time on today. But first, I wanted to name what we're going through. So in the poll, all of you, not all of you, but the majority of you picked coronavirus as our biggest challenge right now. And it's known as a black swan event. I hadn't heard the term before, I had to Google it myself. But a black swan event represents unpredictable events beyond what's normally expected. And they potentially have severe and catastrophic consequences. They're characterized by being extremely rare, having a severe impact. And the one that I found the most interesting is in the end, there's insistence that they were obvious in hindsight if we had done a better job of predicting. So that's what a black swan event is. And when it happens, human nature is to hunker down. Look at what's happening with this pandemic. Everyone's staying at home, focusing on being safe. In the IT world, we're focusing on keeping the lights running, making sure things are continuing to hum along. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm speaking to you from my bedroom/office, where I've been since early March, and really hoping nobody walks in during this presentation. And if you've created an organization that knows the industry and customers you serve, you'll be ready to stand in front and lead, even if it's from your own bedroom/office. Black Swan events require an immediate response to the unexpected, and that's best supported for customers by solution partners who understand their business. So let's talk about that. There are many products that are built to have wide appeal. And in fact, if you listen to the design edition of this festival, you heard from the author of Hooked about designing addictive products specifically for the mass market. I've been working in IT since the 1990s, and not really the cool part of IT. I don't have experience building consumer products. Instead, I focused on business applications, solutions that help governments and businesses accomplish their mission effectively. In fact, in my first job, I answered phones at a help desk, spent about 3 years working on a help desk, learned more in that job than I've learned in any other job since then. And I would answer calls, and then I would go and read the COBOL code to figure out why the solution I was supporting did what it did. So I've seen products go from those old technologies, which generally led to purpose-built systems used by one organization, to current technologies, which enable much more generic products to be built to be able to work across many industries. We're in the everything as a service time. The digital natives are actually starting to make their way into the workforce, and more systems are being configured using low-code, no-code platforms. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate low-code, no-code platforms. And in my job, we deliver some great solutions using them. Let's go to the next slide. But I'm gonna tell you about a little bit of a bias I have. And that is I struggle with the generic solutions that we built up during the commercial off-the-shelf movement that are unwieldy because they try to use the same solution across many industries. And why do we think we have one solution that can manage an insurance case, a medical case, and a legal case? This doesn't work. These cases are all quite different. And so these COT solutions end up being purchased and then highly customized by each organization, and as a result are costly to maintain. There is a middle road here between custom solutions built for one organization and a generic one that can be used by any industry. And today's technology have enabled us to create a lot more of these that are in that middle space. IT solutions that are targeted at specific industries walk that right line between custom solutions and generic product solutions that everybody needs to customize in order to use. Niche products can focus their investment to serve a narrower set of needs. Back to my case management solution, if I'm focused on medical cases only, I won't end up investing in product enhancements for how courts run or all these other cases get managed. I'll focus all of my investments on the medical community. And as a result, I'll deliver more value to that user community. And the reason I mention niche products, because while the leadership practices we're going to talk about today are relevant for anyone, some are particularly important for leading during Black Swan events and leading industry niche solutions. So back to our topic at hand. What are the most important aspects of leadership? These are always fun to try to boil down for people. So let's go to the next slide. And the first one is being a constant learner. And we have an unusual challenge leading IT products. There's a lot we need to understand, and it is constantly changing. Choosing this career is not an easy path. And the good news is most of you know this, and that's why you're attending this virtual conference, pursuing degrees, you're learning. And what I mean by constant learning is we need to be large consumers of information. We need to read books, we need to read periodicals, and I say that, but I know most of it's online. We need to read stuff online. We need to watch videos. We need to learn. There's a lot for us to learn, and we need to be networkers. We need to talk to other people who are doing similar things and learn from people as well. And really, I put it into three categories for us as in the IT and specifically in the product industry. The first thing is we need to understand technology. So to build products, we need to understand the ever-evolving technology landscape, what exists now and what's coming. So you need to learn and read about technologies that may be applicable. And having been someone who received my degree in IT when there was no such thing as a web browser, I can assure you this requires constant learning. The next thing you really need to understand is your industry. So back to my previous example, if I were to build solutions for the medical community, I don't need to be a medical doctor myself, but I need to know what's happening in that community. What are they dealing with every day? What are the trends? I work right now with the US federal government on cyber solutions, back office solutions, and many others. To stay up to date, I read the industry trade rags. I watch the TV shows that talk about what's going on in government IT. I actively participate in industry organizations. I build relationships and I talk to the people who are in the industry so I can understand their reality, what it is they're experiencing every day. The third thing we really need to know is the customers we serve. Beyond just knowing the industry, you need to know the customers you serve, the actual humans, and their customers, and what they need. What are their challenges and opportunities, and how does your product enable their success? And we all know this. This is the heart of user-centered design. I'm sure you've talked about it a lot during this festival. And to do that, we really need to listen to our customers and actually listen to them. You know, I was judging a case competition on Friday as part of a leadership training at CGI. And in the case, we did like a role play. I was in the role of the customer. I was the CEO of a company. And the team that won this friendly competition listened to me. They researched me in advance. They understood my industry. And in the meeting, they watched my facial expressions. They listened to the questions I asked. And then the key part, they adjusted what they were saying. That makes all the difference. And so for me, when it comes to understanding my customers, one of the best practices that I've employed is developing relationships with customers who have different perspectives and then using them as informal sounding boards. You know, look, when we have a product, we have formal user groups, and we have lots of avenues that we create to hear from our customers and to communicate with our customers. And we need to continue with all those. They give us great insight into what's happening. You can't replace the value, though, of having a handful of trusted advisors. And please make sure they're the trusted advisors that tell you the unvarnished truth. They don't mince words. They tell you exactly how they feel and what they think. And make sure that it's people from many different perspectives. And if you have that group of trusted advisors, you can then use them to vet certain things that you might try, get an idea of what's happening, and get more truth than you might through some of the user group settings. And for those of you out there who are developers and listening to all of this and are thinking to yourselves, I don't need to know this to successfully develop code. I focus all my learning on technology. I'm going to challenge you to think differently. The best developers I know are those who understand the industry and the customers they are serving. I know it's not a priority that everyone places, but I tell you, time and time again, the developers who really understand that market, they're the ones that build the right thing the first time. And in that iterative development process, we're not going back and back. They get it right the first time because they understand that user group. So this really applies for everyone as far as learning goes. And if you do all of this, you're going to achieve what Govind from Adobe talked about earlier in the festival, when he talked about how good product managers differentiate themselves by the art of storytelling. If you listen to his talk, you may recall he said that you shouldn't be talking about features for your product. I don't want a list of widgets and things that you're going to add. You need to be able to tell a story about the problem you're trying to solve, who you're solving it for, and why it's important to solve it. That why is very critical. So if you can get that in and you can tell that story, you're going to be able to get where you need to go. And to do that, you need to truly understand your customer, your industry, and the technology. So let's go to the next slide. And innovate is our next thing. And again, very widely used and overused in our industry. And what I want to talk about is some practical things to focus on leading and innovating. The first one is innovating with your customers. So at CGI, innovation is very client-centric. It's inspired by our day-to-day interactions with our customer in our operations. We don't have a bunch of people sitting in a closed room, cooking up the next cool feature and throwing it at people. We're iteratively working with our customers side by side, whether it's in a meeting room or in a Zoom call these days. And we develop solutions that are uniquely tailored to the needs of their industry, their geography, and their challenges. And look, there's a reason methodologies have evolved to iterative development on integrated Scrum teams. It's because it works. So actually use them and make sure that you have that close interaction with your customer as you're doing your development. The second thing is, how we think about innovation. And this is a little bit more about how you talk to yourself about innovation. For years, I struggled with looking at myself and thinking I'm an innovator. I had invention and innovation kind of all scrambled up in my head and thought they were one thing. And I thought, well, I'll never invent something new. I'm not smart enough to invent a light bulb or an elevator. What I am good at is looking at something and figuring out how to make it better or finding a new use for it. That's my kind of innovation. Innovation is really just the process of applying new or old ideas to business and technology challenges, creating value for our stakeholders. Leadership requires that a new proposed solution prior to development not only defines how it applies to the immediate client needs, but how it could be adapted over time to address future challenges. And again, the why. Why is it important to a client? So the next thing I want to talk about with innovation is I'm going to give you a new methodology tool to try. When you're trying to get a group, maybe a group of people that's similar to me, don't really consider themselves innovators. And when we talk about innovation or an ideation session, they get scared because they don't think they can contribute. And it's a methodology called Yes and it's leveraged from the comedy improv industry. If you haven't read about it or seen about it, and there's actually a lot of books that have been written at this point, go out to YouTube and search Yes and you should find some good videos about it. I teach a seminar in my company on this topic. So a whole seminar just on this. And saying yes and, the basic tenet of it is to change our approach and the language we use during an ideation meeting to get better innovation. So pay attention in your next meeting like this. And are people in the room voicing an idea and then someone else says, no, that's not going to work? Or says, yes, but what about this thing over here? How are we going to handle that? And then the person who had the idea stops talking and the energy comes right out of the room. It happens all the time. We accidentally squash the discussion with the use of the words no or but. I saw it a few months back. Someone at my company said, hey, we should build an app that does better contact tracing when all this first started happening. And the next person said, yeah, great idea, but we'll never be able to navigate international privacy laws. And there are so many products out there already, it's going to be hard to differentiate. And that killed the conversation. It was over. In the end, the naysayer may have been right. But we also could have missed a great opportunity, and we'll never know. So try something different. Force everybody to say yes and to someone else's idea. So in our last example, after somebody said, hey, we should build a contact tracing application, the next person would say, yes, and we need to look at which customers are in which countries that have different privacy laws. And then the next person might say yes, and we'll add something to the app that provides them the option to make certain data anonymous to comply with the privacy laws. And then the next person, yes, and there are products out there that do similar things. We need to bring together those capabilities and figure out how to leverage them for the differentiated product. You get the idea. I could go on and on with that example. But by changing our mindset and our language to yes and, more innovation happens. People are energized and more ideas come to the table. And frankly, some of the quieter people in those sessions will have the courage to speak up if all of their ideas are met with yes and. In the end, we still may have decided not to pursue the idea. But even so, I guarantee the best ideas of the group would have been out there to help us decide. So if you take nothing else out of today, bring this with you and try it in one of your next meetings. The last thing on innovation that I really want to talk about is focus. And so you pick up any leadership book and you'll read about how you can't do everything. Leading is picking the most important things and doing them really well. When you're evolving a product, focus is key. Innovate on the biggest problems there are and the ones that are going to be important to the more of your users. I was shopping the other day for a new desk chair. I finally admitted that we're going to be staying at home for a while longer, and I actually need a comfortable chair to sit in. And there are so many features on desk chairs. It was completely overwhelming trying to compare all the different chairs and the kind of seats they had and what adjustments they had and everything. And so in the end, I bought a chair, didn't have all the features that I want, definitely not the color that I wanted, but it had the couple of key features that I needed. And I valued those features above everything else. And so for me, I'm a little bit vertically challenged. You can't really tell on video. But for me, the adjustable headrest and the adjustment of the arms, those are the most important features. And so I bought a chair that had those and had the best capability in that area. People choose products the same way. It's all about, does this product meet my most important needs? So make sure when you're innovating on your products, you're focusing on the things that are most important to your users. All right, let's go to the next slide. So we're going to leverage, the next thing I want to talk about is leveraging all our available resources. As leaders, we tend to go back to the same people we trust. There's an exercise out there. It's actually a diversity and inclusion exercise called the Trusted 10. If you ever have time, go take that to yourself and actually have your team do the Trusted 10. And what we find is there's a lot of overlap in the type of people that we go to on a regular basis on this Trusted 10 that we use. And when it comes to being a strong leader, especially in times like these, you need to make sure you're leveraging all of your available resources and maybe some resources that aren't immediately available to you, but you figure out how to make them available to you. When you're trying to get something done at speed, you need to think bigger and you need to leverage all the resources available to you and our entire team, not just our go-to people. And we need to focus on leveraging people outside of our immediate physical realm. I work for a global company and we focus on harnessing the power of our global solutions and talent and bringing them to our customers. And it's not easy. You've got to cross language barriers, time barriers. It's the evening for you guys. It's still the morning for me. And you got to navigate import-export laws, but it is worth the investment. And as I talked about with innovation, I'm confident that there are smart people who have solved most things somewhere. My job as a leader is to try to figure out where and how to get access to it. And I know I'm not the first to say it, but one of the few really good things that's come out of this pandemic is that we've all learned to work differently and without being physically next to each other. I can't wait for us to get back in the office. I enjoy people. I get my energy from people. But the barriers of leveraging global resources are crashing down right now. And the impact to each country for this Black Swan event and others will be different. Look at the US, look at India. We're both struggling with this pandemic, and having a large global network insulates your product and you as a leader. Let's go to the next slide. The next important thing, and I talked about when I was talking to my daughter, this is about being a contingency planner. So the first time I led a product organization, I was maybe 10 years into my career about. I made the typical mistake of first-time leaders. I wanted to be agile and I wanted to, be okay moving my direction. but I changed the direction of the team too often. And so instead of it being course correcting, I was actually zigzagging the team. And as a team, they were too busy adjusting to my whims that they weren't getting much done. And one of the speakers at this event, I can't remember who it was, talked about leaders plant a flag. And that really resonated with me. I agree. As leaders, we plant a flag. We come up with the big goal. We point to the hill and say, we're going to take it. And then we inspire people to follow us because we at least appear to know where we're going. Here's the thing, especially in a very uncertain time, it is critical that you keep that vision relatively constant. The vision of where you're going needs to stay constant. Then you need to plan for contingencies and adjust the tactics you're using to get there. So as we talked about with being learners, everything changes. As a leader, you need to have your eyes forward, looking for those changes, planning for them, and then making those course corrections. Leaders, we spend a little bit of time doing some lessons learned and looking backwards, but the majority of our time doesn't matter what happened yesterday, it's all about what's happening in the future. The art of leading is keeping everybody focused on the vision and then quietly making the course adjustments to the tactics so the team can stay focused on the ultimate goal. Which really leads us to the next slide, which is really about being agile. We talk about agility a lot. We talk about it in our development methodologies, which you guys all know very well. I want to talk about it in the context of being agile decision makers. When it comes to products, we talk about experimentation, we talk about failing fast, we know prototypes, we know iterations, we build stuff. We know all about agility. For some reason, though, many people still don't apply these tactics to decision making. Leaders need to be decisive. We need to fail fast as well. We need to prototype and we need to iterate. All of those things apply to decision making just as they do for development. As a leader, people look to us to know what to do. And we never have complete information, and the environment's always changing. It's incumbent on us to make decisions anyway. And it's happened a lot during this Black Swan event. The environment's been changing. When it happened, all of a sudden, I don't know about you, but I was working on a Friday, and on Friday we decided we're not coming back to the office for a while, and everybody had to just quickly adjust. But it was important to be decisive and make those actions. And then here's the hard part. If you're an authentic leader, you need to be okay with publicly being wrong. It's one thing to be okay with being wrong, but you have to be okay with being publicly wrong. You gain so much credibility with your team and with your customers when you are decisive, and then you're the one to recognize later when it was the wrong decision. Own it and then adjust it. So my best example for this, about 15 years ago, I built a business case for a small new product that I wanted to add to our suite. I did great research. I understood the industry. I understood the customers, everything I talked about earlier. And I went to the investment committee and asked for $1.5 million to make it happen. And I got the money and I was so excited. It was the first time it was really kind of my baby that I had created. And about $1 million into that investment through a series of discussions with potential customers, that kind of board that I talked about that you get informal stuff from, I realized I made a mistake. And from the time I had made my business case to now, which was about, probably 10, 11, 12 months, a few of the fundamental things had changed. A new policy had come out of the government that reduced the need for what we were building. And I hadn't been keeping up. I've been so focused on getting my work done, I wasn't paying attention to the environment around me. And the fundamental problem we were solving, it was no longer anywhere near the top of the needs for that customer base. So their realities had changed, and our product probably wasn't going to be that important. So I'm $1 million into a $1.5 million investment. The first time I've been at the front of this, what do? Do we just finish the investment and I hope that something changes and work hard to try to sell something? or do I own the mistake? I went back to the same investment committee with an updated business case and explained we shouldn't spend another penny. I owned my mistake. I was able to articulate exactly what had happened in the market, what had changed, and why it no longer made sense. And we stopped the investment. We shelved what we had already built, and we lost $1 million. I gained the respect, though, of my management for having leadership courage and respect for my team for being transparent about my mistake. I didn't try to blame it on anyone. I just said, this is what happened. I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming, and then I didn't see it when it happened. And now we're changing courses. Out of that experience, I learned so many things. But most importantly, I learned the value of one, paying attention, hence our first aspect of leadership. And the second was the value of leading authentically, of owning my mistakes and being the one to correct them. So let's go to the next slide. And this is the last part of leadership that we're going to talk about today. And this is about being willing to take risk. Risk is a very big word, and everyone has different levels of risk tolerance. If you're in the early or middle parts of your career and you think you want to move up and you want to lead more people, more products, understand one thing: you must have a high tolerance for risk. Say it again. As a leader, you must have a high tolerance for risk. I spent a lot of time thinking about risk, as we all have lately, and I've come to the realization that my job as a leader is mostly about managing risks. I need to communicate. I need to build a solid team. I need to create an environment where people thrive. But mostly I manage and I accept risk. And there's really two types of risk. The first one is business risk. That's what I talked about with my failed investment. Where do I spend the resources I have? What's going to make my product the best? How am I going to grow my business? And these days, do I have the right cybersecurity in place for the current work environment? When is it safe for people to return to the office, etc.? Business risk is generally measured. You have to take it, but you're always trying to find the right balance of risk and reward. The second type of risk, which you experience more as a leader, is personal risk. And that's where you have to be all in and very comfortable with it, because you are constantly going to be putting yourself and your ideas out there, listening to feedback, good and bad, and adjusting. Authentic leaders are constantly showing their own vulnerability and their imperfect decisions. We are constantly showing what humans we are. Here in the US, right now, we have a lot of social unrest around the Black Lives Matter movement and the systemic racism that exists in our country. And what are the good leaders doing? We're listening. We're opening ourselves up to hearing what life is really like for people, how they're experiencing the same things we are, but perhaps in a very different way. And with that information, we are acting. We are going out there and saying, I didn't understand this before, and now I do. And this is what we're going to do differently as a result. It's simple, really. A lot of leadership is being willing to take personal risk and own your own humanity. Let's go to the next slide. And this is where we conclude. It's funny, every time I put together a seminar on leadership, I always look back at it and say, geez, these are such simple, straightforward things to do. Maybe I'm not digging deep enough. And then I think and I read, and you know what? Leadership is very simple. The concepts are very simple. The challenge is living it and practicing it. So back to where we started, how do we know how to lead a product or a business or a team of people when a pandemic or other black swan event occurs? As I told my 8-year-old, we don't really know. We just start leading. And if you're lucky, you start with a product or solution that's been built in partnership with your customers, and you have deep expertise already in your industry and your customer and their customers. And then we do what we talked about. We lead as constant learners of technology, industries, and customers we serve. We lead as innovators with our customers, applying the yes and methodology and focusing on the most important challenges. We're resourceful leaders that have invested time building a network and we look beyond our trusted circle and harness the power of that global network. We lead as contingency planners who understand the difference between changing the destination and modifying the tactics to get where we want to go, and who are always planning for the unexpected. We lead as agile decision makers who are decisive and always willing to publicly change course. And we lead as risk takers who have a healthy appetite for business and personal risk and lead transparently and authentically. With all of these habits, you'll be a successful leader in any environment. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to any discussion you'd like to have. Tarun?
Thank you, Stephanie. I mean, there were lots of learnings that I gained from this, and let me summarize all this in my own way so that I can keep it all in my mind. The way I look at what you've explained is I think the key word that you brought out is, all of this is simple, but the key word is practice. The more you practice, the more really then you build that habit of continuing with these. And the structure is this: learn, innovate, leverage resources, and build a contingency plan. These four, and then 3 values that can drive this as a practice. So 3 values are: always try and say yes and try that. And there's a pretty interesting and awesome book on this subject, The Opposable Bind by Roger Martin, who talks about how we leverage more on and instead of either or. So we go from either or to and it's a lovely book. And I think our viewers can get a book. I think it's on Kindle or Amazon. Just buy that book, Opposable Mind. The next value is go beyond the trusted 10. And I have a question on that, which I'll pose to you. So go beyond your trusted 10, enlarge your network. And the last is be decisive, make small mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, be transparent. We're all human beings. Fantastic book by Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate, Thinking Fast and Slow. And the magical words in that book is be calm and kind, because really nobody knows any better. So keep trying, make decisions, fail, it's okay. And if we do these 4 things, learn, innovate, leverage resources, and plan your contingencies, follow these 3 values together, use yes and go beyond your trusted 10, be decisive, then the capability to take risks, the tolerance for risk will probably increase, and the habit of making calculated risks will also increase. So this is in a nutshell what I think you said.
You said it perfectly. You should do this next time.
I'll do it with you. You did all the heavy lifting, really. So all I had to do was just sum it up. So one of the questions that comes in mind from the trusted 10 is, so innovation, as you see, has been necessarily a child of serendipity more often than not. For instance, people bumping into each other, often at breakout zones, where chit chats often convert to collaborations, producing remarkable results. What do you think we are going to experience with the world at remote? So it's more Zoom and less in person. For instance, I can't see most of our guests. I can't see eye to eye with them, and I can't see in their eyes and talk to them. So there's lesser moments of serendipitous encounters. Would innovation or blue sky thinking go into hiding or take a beating?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It's what we're all concerned about and all trying to figure out. And in fact, I think one of your speakers yesterday or the day before was talking about not just trying to make events the same, but how do we make them better in the virtual world, which I thought was a really great way to frame that question to ourselves. I think for me, I actually worked remotely once before. So for a long time ago, I moved to California and was working with people that were elsewhere in the country, and was working from my living room for 4 years. And during that time, I picked up a lot of habits to try to make serendipity happen. And it doesn't always work, but it helped. And one of the things was my random phone call of the day or the week, where similar to, you would pop into somebody's office, I would just pick up the phone and call somebody and connect with them and just see how they're doing. Like I would, how was your weekend? Same type of thing you would do. What are you working on? And try to get some of that to happen anyway. but it's not easy. And we're trying all sorts of things. The great thing is the collaboration tools have gotten a lot better. I did that back in the early 2000s when we didn't have the same collaboration tools that we have now. And so I think for all of us, it's figuring out how do we leverage these new tools to create that same type of innovative yes and environment in the virtual world.
Right. So it's natural human tendencies to always gravitate towards the known faces, the known people. And now with uncertainties, obviously we have heavier loads on our heart and lumps in our throats. So we try to steer towards people that we know. But that's exactly what we don't want to do right now. So we want to keep in touch with everybody we know, but also go beyond and get more perspectives. And that's what you spoke to us about. The other question that comes to my mind is, now, large companies, and you did touch upon them, some of them in your presentation, but let me put that question out a little bit more specifically. The experience is that large companies have a certain structure, which is designed for a certain strategy. Um, no matter how much you will, but black swans are black swans, you cannot predict. And structures are normally rigid in large companies, at least that's the perception one would have. Um, and everything seems right, no major hurdle in sight. And I wrote that line, so I'm going to say it, and bam, there's an iceberg, uh, right? Um,
Exactly.
so how could structures be flexible enough without compromising quality of service and increase in costs while still maintaining consistency, right? So while you're building contingency plan, you did mention that you have to maintain consistency, but uncertainties and structures are rigid sometimes. So how do you make it flexible enough?
That's a great question. And I'm a little spoiled, so I'll be honest here. I'm a little spoiled in that my company has managed to do just that. So my company started with 2 people a long time ago and is structured around a management foundation so that all projects are run the same way. We have the same metrics all across the globe. Everyone's looking at the same set of data and running the business the same way. Yet, all of the decision making is decentralized. And so I lead a business unit in our federal operations. I have autonomy to lead my business the way I need to, given my environment. I still have to report out the same metrics. I still have to use the same systems and the same framework for how I manage my customers. But the individual strategies are all done locally. And so it allows us exactly what you're talking about is to have both a flexible structure and a consistent structure. And it's something we've invested a lot of time and money and blood, sweat, and tears in developing. But it's a great way to run a large company.
Thank you, Stephanie. I have one last question that I have on board here. I think it's an audience question. Okay. So what we have learned is, and you touched upon this where you said, if I have to work with the medical community, I don't have to be a doctor myself, but I need to know 3 things: the tech, the industry, and my customers. So at the intersection point of these 3 is where the magic lies. Now, so people, and in India, as you would see, is a place where a lot of action is happening with startup. And our prime minister a month back did make a call of self-sufficiency, of self-sustenance at the backdrop of what's happening. And so a lot more people are engaged in trying to build new products and solutions, and specifically probably trying to go niche because that's the best place to start. But many people try to go wide and fail while doing that. Now, so if one person comes from another field, from outside, it's a new company, startup, really not a large contact base of a large company, what are some of the challenges you think one may be faced with when coming from outside the field or industry to innovate during these times of uncertainty?
It's going to be a challenge, right? So the first thing I would probably do is in that kind of circle of people that I talk to, you would have to have people in that community come into that environment with you. And so if you're going to build a niche product for the medical community and you're not in the medical community yourself, it's important that in your trusted advisors, you have people that are sitting in that community. Again, you've got to leverage that network. you can still learn and you can still focus on inundating yourself with what's happening there, but you need to get, and again, it's important when you're looking at that community that it's people with different perspectives in the community. So if it's the medical field, having a doctor's good, but you also want people who are maybe typical patients in that community, right? You want people coming, you know, when you look at that stakeholder map, coming from all the different perspectives to make sure the problem you're solving is the right problem.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much. I think we have Rajesh Sethi now knocking on our doors, saying
I saw
his
that.
section is now due. So, so that's our cue. Basically, we need to get out of the way.
Okay.
Over to you, Menka.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, for these wonderful insights, and Tarun for taking time out to host Stephanie. Thank you so much. So I'm sure our audience, they enjoyed and they really got some great insights from this session. And we have seen some questions also. So we have a feedback poll going on. And before you leave, Stephanie, we have one more thing. Tarun, could you please?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry. We have a small token of appreciation for you, Stephanie, for this amazing insights that you've shared. Definitely a lot of learnings that I have. And yes, so while I was thinking of trusted advisors in terms of professionals, typical users was not really on top of my mind. Was looking at much wider persona. But yeah, that word helps. So thank you so much, and please accept this token of appreciation from the festival.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I have a very interesting, very exciting announcement. We have a winner for the best question asked, Dr. N. Karpaya. Congratulations. We will reach out to you with your gifts, and please keep asking questions to win exciting prizes. And please send us your testimonials and win rewards. You can scan this QR code, and this QR code, the URL is available on your chat window also. So after a wonderful session by Stephanie, we are moving on to the next one by Rajesh Sethi, Uplift. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to see Rajesh ji's videos on YouTube. It's wonderful, and we are very, very privileged to have him with us. And so before we move on to the next session, please scan this QR code, refer your friends and family, and rank higher on the leaderboard. You can get a one-on-one mentoring session with our speakers. You have seen how great they are, so do not miss this opportunity. And for Rajesh's session, please ask your questions only on this LinkedIn thread. Let me give you a moment to scan the QR code and keep it ready. The URL is available on your chat window as well. Now, the moderator for this session, we have Vasudev Murthy with us. So please join me in welcoming Vasudev Murthy. He's the author of multiple books, including How Organizations Really Work. Mind you, it's a very interesting read. You should definitely check it out. Vasudev Murthy dons many hats. He's managing partner with Focal Concepts. He's an expert trainer, animal rescuer, yoga enthusiast, etc. Vasudev, we are very, very happy to have you with us here. Over to you. Please take over the session.
Thank you very much, Menaka. It's wonderful to be back here with my favorite gang. Welcome, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed the previous session, brilliantly managed by Tarun. And Stephanie, I don't know if you're still on the call, but I came in a little late, but I enjoyed your insights. So thank you for that. Quickly, a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce my guest, Mr. Rajesh Shetty. As Menaka has put up a little link over there, so there's a link on the chat window. That's the place where you need to go and enter your questions. Okay, so please do that. And what I will do in my capacity as a moderator is that after the 35-40-minute presentation by Rajesh, I will go to that form, and I'll choose the questions that are the most relevant for for what I need to do. Okay. So we'll do that, and after that, of course, there's the usual feedback and so on and so forth. So once again, the plan for the coming hour is I will introduce Rajesh. There's a lot to say, but I will try to say it, and then Rajesh will take over and discuss his very fascinating new concept. He won't say it's new. I think it's just it's a very interesting and very humble but refreshing perspective. Thereafterwards, I will then go into the Q&A mode. So let me go ahead and welcome Rajesh. Checking. Rajesh, are you here, sir?
Could you unmute yourself, Rajesh ji?
Mr. Shetty, are you there?
Great to see all of you.
Oh, there you are. How are you doing, Rajesh?
Very good. My wife tells me I talk a lot. I thought somebody else got the message and muted me also.
That was pretty fast. Okay, I hope you heard the plan of action, right? So I'm
Yes.
hoping that you'll be able to make the most of 35 to 40 minutes and give us your insights. My view of every session, and I'm sure Rajesh you might agree, is that because of a limited capacity to absorb and retain material, possibly you will come out with one or two or three very straight points that you hope someone attending this session will take back with him or her. Okay, so let me go ahead and take a minute to introduce Rajesh. Actually, he's a fantastic website. You guys should see it. It's as you can expect, it's called rajeshshetty.com, right, Mr. Shetty?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's really nice. You should go there. It's rajeshshetty.com, and it's beautifully organized. He talks about himself. What I like is there's an autobiographical element about how the formative years, the first 10 years, what happened, and of course he and I have had a couple a personal discussion which I can't talk about, but then he talks about what happened in his teenage time, then how he embraced change, he moved around, he was in several countries, and now he's talking about uplift. Now, what is uplift? Now, I don't want to steal your thunder, Rajesh, so I'll leave it to you. But what I thought was very nice was that, all these fascinating experiences, I can see that you have been a high achiever, right? Probably without, probably just instinctively, you've always been right up top with whether it's academics or your whole fascination and enthusiasm for startups, which I see that you've done lots of startups, and you probably will continue, for the next several years, which you should. But all that, rather than giving you a chip on your block, I see on your back rather, it seems to have shaped you in a different way. So I saw that video of yours, Rajesh. I thought it was very nice. Your voice was a little muted, but I could see a certain very positive quality in what you were trying to say there in a very soft and humble way, right? I don't want to talk about uplift much more, but I see it as a refreshing new philosophy about giving and so much more. So with that introduction, again, Rajesh is of course from our part of the country. He's from Bangalore, near Bangalore, and life has taken him in all kinds of directions. So why don't you start a quick summary, because when you talk to me, I like that story very much, and obviously it has shaped you as it is. So why don't we begin with a very quick summary of your life journey so far, and then let's just dive straight into uplift. And Menaka, you please help me out by being my timekeeper, and because I'll be absorbed with whatever Rajesh has to say. Okay? Yeah. Rajesh, all yours, my friend.
Very good, Vasudev. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I know that I may be between you and your sleeping schedule, so either it will put you to sleep or wake you up. Let us see what happens in the end. So I'll give you a very quick background about my life. Right now I do three things. I start companies or help people start companies. I write books, and I teach courses for entrepreneurs on how to bring their ideas to life. None of them were planned. I always say myself as a work in progress. I guarantee work and progress is left to God. So this is how it began. I used to read a lot. By the time I was 9, I read about 700 books. And if you ask my mom, she will say that most of them were useless books, because I was so fascinated by mystery, thrillers, adventures, and all of them. And I used to play a game that I read so many books, I should be able to predict how the ending will be. Most of the time I would be wrong, and that would frustrate the hell out of me. So how can this be wrong? I've read 700 books. Come on, give me a break. And then I would get surprised again and again. And I said, when I was 10, I said, you know what? I'll write my own book. If I write my own book, I will make the characters do whatever I want. So there is no question of failing ever. So it took me 8 months and 200 pages. I finished my first novel. And then, then actually the madness began. I thought, how many people will write books? People will be waiting for them to publish it. So I'll just call a publisher. I didn't come from a well-off family, so I used to collect pocket money and go to a grocery store nearby and make calls to publishers, pitching. At that time, I didn't know I was pitching things, but very soon I realized that I was getting rejected faster than I was pitching, right? So after 160 rejections, I got a break and I was published as the first. My first book was published by a well-known publisher. 6 books were published before I was 17. And then my mom, being an Indian mom, she got worried that I'll become a writer, which means that she would be a failure. So that cannot happen. She gave me three choices: engineer, doctor, or a loser. She said, please choose wisely, don't break my heart. So I became an engineer, and that is who I am. For my mom, she is happy that her checklist item is fulfilled. One of her sons is an engineer. I did very well, and life took me different places. I lived in Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, France, Belgium. In 1997, I moved to United States. Since 2000, I've started about a dozen companies. I got back to writing in 2005, and totally I've written 16 books. And engineering, I did it because of my mom, because I love my mom. But I had to do something on my own, so I got interested in philosophy. I studied linguistic philosophy for 7.5 years. So you can call me, I'm engineering philosophy, or I'm philosophically engineering stuff, whatever it is. One thing I know, if I can't convince, I can confuse people. In this time, I'll try to convince people of something. Is that a good background, Vasudev?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Fantastic. Hey, I have a feeling, Rajesh, you're probably the kind of guy who's had a nice Excel sheet and he's written on all those, all the books that you have read with the titles, all the 700 books. Is it likely? You can probably tell me.
No, at that time, I used to go to the library and said,
Okay.
this month, I'm going to read whatever is in this section. So I'll just keep reading. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. Go for it. Go for it. Tell us all about Uplift and the wonderful things you're doing. Go ahead, my friend.
I can share my screen, right?
Yes, of course. Of course. You already shared a lot of wisdom. You can share your screen too. No problem.
Okay. So it's asking me to set some system preferences. Okay, let me do that. Okay. Now I should be able to share the screen. Yes. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yep, there it is. Uplift, it says.
Okay, great. Okay, excellent. So I've been working on this for the last few months because whenever I see a problem, I want to jump on it head on. That is my usual style, because when you work on problems, you grow. That is my fundamental philosophy. If you run away from problems, you shrink. If you run towards problems, you will grow. So this problem came because my friends, many of them, I'm about 50 years old now. So people would talk about midlife crisis and all of them. And I used to say, why is this even happening? Like we live in the most promising kind of world, bar COVID, like remove COVID from the equation. Its possibilities are unlimited. But why would people complain? The first thing that I ask people is, the fundamental question I ask is, if you go back and relive your last 5 years, would you make the same choices and decisions that led you to exactly where you are today? It's the first question I ask people. And I've asked this to over 200 people now since the time I started this program, except one person. I don't know whether he was lying or whether he was fully contented. Everybody said, no, I would not do it. And I would do something else. And it is across the board, over 200 people. Like I said, one person, he may be playing a prank with me, or he may be lying. But most of them said they would do something back in the previous 5 years because they were not happy with what happened. And if you think about it, so typically you say, I don't know what happened in the last 5 years. When they say these kinds of statements, there is more regret than joy. So I'm thinking like I cannot change everything. But I said if we can put together a framework, remember I'm an engineer and a philosopher, so I'm good at putting frameworks on from abstract concepts to make it real. So
Yep.
if I put this framework and I test it, at the end of 1 year, somebody should say, last year was amazing, I can't wait for the next one. That is my goal. If you use this framework, at the end of it, you don't have to pay me anything. Everything is free anyway. At the end of it, if you feel that, with joy, you can say that last year was amazing, I can't wait for the next one, then I have done my job. That is how I judge myself, whether I'm providing value or not. Now, I have a feeling that the best way to uplift yourself is to pursue capacity expansion that comes with lifting others up. It's by giving, not by consuming. Now, why is it that by lifting others up, we will benefit? It's like, what is the reason? So let's think about what it means to lift others up. There are only two ways in my mind. You have to solve their problems, help them solve their problems, or help them pursue new opportunities. There are only two things that you can do to lift them up. So let's look at either one of them. If you try to help solve their problems or help pursue new opportunities, what does it involve? What is involved is you have to first listen to them, right? Because if you don't listen to them, you don't know what problems they have or what opportunities they want to pursue. And you have to care for them. Because if you don't care, then you won't put your heart and soul in it. And you have to be trustworthy. They should trust you to help them solve their problems or help them to pursue their opportunities. You see, very simply, just by deciding to lift others up, you already learn to listen, care, and be trustworthy. Like Jim Rohn, the famous guru, he said, every disciplined effort has multiple rewards. I'm always looking for things that you can pursue that will lead to multiple benefits just because of the fact that you are pursuing them. It's not only that. If you want to help many people, you have to be in your zone of genius. That means you have to use your strengths, core strengths, to help others. Now, many smart people don't know what is their core strength, what their core strengths are. Why? Because it's too easy for them. When they are in their zone of genius or when they're in the flow, they just are doing whatever they are doing, but they don't think that there is anything magic. So the strengths become invisible to them. When you become conscious of lifting others up, the core strengths come to the forefront. You start knowing your superpowers. Not only that, because it's not your life, you are helping others. And they have their own limitations, blind spots, and everything. You have to adopt your strengths very, very quickly. You learn to do that. And then, like I said, if they don't trust you or if they don't believe in you, they won't let you help them, which means you have to build your brand. Just by choosing to lift others up, look at what is happening. You listen, care, be trustworthy, know your strengths and use them, be adaptable, and also you'll build your brand. This is the kind of thing I always look for. What projects can you pursue that just by the fact of pursuing them, you start growing? Forget about the prize at the end of the destination. Right during the journey, how can you keep growing? Now, value exchange. I talk about value exchange because this is part of life. You are always giving value and receiving value. In a core, you give and take. Sometimes it's simple. You go to a grocery store, you want to buy a toothpaste or something, you give some value, which is in the form of money. They give you a toothpaste pack. And then that's easy to remember. The problem comes when some things are not easy to assess. But here is something more. So the magic starts happening when you ask for less than what you give, which is you give more value, but ask them for giving you less value in exchange. It looks like coming from with my last name Shetty, you know that we are from a merchant family. Me saying it is already an oxymoronic thing. So, but be that as it may, when you give more and receive less, magic happens. And you might think, how can it be possible? Because there is another concept called delta karma points. The difference between what you give and what you get, it gets credited in the universal bank account. I call it karma points, which if you do it right, very well, you help 100 people, 80 of them will forget it. The other 20 that will want to reciprocate back is a big enough number that very soon you will end up in a state where you have an oversupply of good help. which means that when you want to pursue your own projects, there is a line of people who are waiting to help you. And in fact, if you do it really, really well, you have an abundance of good help that you don't have enough projects to use all the help that is being offered to you from the universe. Something to keep in mind. And like I said, there is one confusion that happens when you give and get, which is if things are tangible, right? So then there is no problem really. So when things, you give some material value, you get some material value, it's very easy. But whenever the things are like, for example, if it is intangible, let's say somebody is low on confidence, and then you help them to boost their confidence. It's actually valuable help, but there is no metric, there is no liters, meters, kilometers, or gallons of confidence that you can get, but it's extremely valuable. Sometimes if you boost their self-esteem so much that instead of being an employee, they become an entrepreneur, that changes the trajectory of somebody's life. But how much of a self-esteem boost, how do you even measure it? So you have to become good at assessing those values. Like imagine you give some money and then there is a coaching session and they come and unblock something in your mind, and then you start flourishing. So there was a tangible value given in terms of money. The intangible was higher than the tangible value because it opened a new vista in your life. That's something to keep in mind. So I always think that the value exchange is the fundamental unit for both contribution, power, and your personal brand. The more you become better at value exchange, more contributions you can make, more power you can garner, and bigger your personal brand. So, but the important thing is many times people don't know that they are even engaged in it. So some things for you to reflect is, how are you doing it today? How do you exchange value? How do you convert your skills into valuable outputs? Just something you don't have to answer to me. There are a few questions that I just posted here so that you can just reflect on it. Like, how good do you think you are at this? Because there is no measure, right? Because how well you do value exchange, there is no metric for it. You have to get it based on the results you produce. That's why if you study neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, there is one fundamental tenet which says the meaning of your communication is in its response. So which is basically people, you go and have a meeting with someone and they say, I had a fantastic meeting with this person, but did you get the deal? No. So the meaning of your communication is in its response. So when you say you are really good at value exchange, it should reflect in your life in some way. If it does not, then you may not be really good at this. Why do you do it? This is the purpose calling and that kind of question. What does it cost for you? When you engage in such thing, there is also a price you pay, price with a C, before you get a price with a Z. Are we getting better at it? Because we are all old enough that we can compare and benchmark against our previous years. If whatever speed at which you are executing things and making things happen, that is not exceeding the previous years, then there is something wrong. Do the side effects help or hurt you? Like I mentioned before, if you pursue a project where during the pursuit of that project you're already growing, then it's a very good, helpful side effect. If it is not, then it is, you have to relook at those things. So how do you win this? This is where the philosophy and engineering, both of them come into the picture. So I say that I created something called as Uplift Mastery Map, which is, it's a very simple framework. It looks complicated, but in the end, you have to remember only one or two things. So allow me to build that for you. So again, just before I go that, I have to say that sometimes people say this value exchange and all, I don't want to play this game. No, but the life is not as simple as that. If you don't want to play this game, the world around you still thinks you are playing this game, but you're not just good at it. That's how the world looks at you. So you can't opt out of the value exchange game because it's like the basic currency of living and in the professional life. So in any map, in a matrix, there will be x-axis and y-axis, right? So basically in x-axis, there are forms of exchange. What can you exchange to create value? And the y-axis is levels of mastery. And how well can you do this exchange to win in the life, in the professional life? We start with one of them, skill. I said skill, but it's plural because we live in the world of polymaths now. There's some people will be good at many things, not just one thing. Like here, Vasu, when I met you, I was just fascinated. Just in our conversation, I said, "Is it one person or many people?" Because you have so many skills, and we keep meeting such people often, and I was thinking, do they have like somebody in the closet that comes out when this person sleeps and he starts working for it? But uh, when we were growing up, there was no internet and all those things. When you see our kids grow up, the speed at which they learn things is so fascinating that they pick up these skills in a tremendous pace. So when I say a skill, please always remember that I'm referring to plural, not a singular one. Now, at the lowest level of mastery, I call it guided. Guided means you have the skill that somebody has to tell you, hey, suppose let's say you're a good cartoonist. Somebody has to tell you, you write good cartoons. Maybe you should use this to communicate that message so that it can create value, or you can do that. You can create a book or something. Somebody has to tell you because it's there, but it has to be activated by somebody's guidance. I hope that this is below zero. I hope that none of us need to be in this space in our life at this juncture of our life. Second, it I call it dabbler. Dabbler means that it's a sporadic value creation. You are good at some skill, but depending on when all the planets are aligned, or if it is a lunar eclipse or solar eclipse, then something will produce. But there is no guarantee that something will happen. There is no guarantee that something won't happen. So it's an unpredictability. So many people stay at this stage. They'll dabble. On a good day, they will do it. On a bad day, they won't do it. There is no consistency. When it starts becoming better is when you are proactive. That means you come across a situation where you know that the skill that you have can be applied to create value. You don't wait for somebody's prompt, somebody's guidance. You are not also sporadic. If there is a situation, your skill can be applied, you will apply it. And this is where the positive stuff starts. Next, it becomes a habit. That means even if you don't have a situation, then you will try to manufacture one so that you can apply your skill, but you will do it on a consistent basis, on a regular basis, every day, every week, like that. So people say, and I use, sometimes people say, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And they say it as if it's a problem. But you can also reframe it and say, if suppose you have a hammer, that is your skill, then your job is to become better at finding the nail skill. That means in every problem, in every person's situation, there is a nail problem. And if you can identify it, you having the hammer becomes a competitive advantage for you. Whatever be the case, when you consistently do things, you are at a higher level than being proactive. From then on, it becomes even more better. It becomes fun for you. Like so you will add value, converting your value to skill, so convert your skill to value just for the fun of it. You are not thinking, because you are so good at it, you are never worried about whether I will do it or not, because you know you will definitely do it. Now it has become super fun. The next level is even better. It becomes a game. You have mastered it so well that you are keeping your own scorecards. So basically, you are not thinking that whether you will succeed or not. You are thinking, what new records can I break that I only set for myself? So it becomes a game that only you are playing against yourself to keep getting better. The last one, I call it magic. In this case, you just be yourself and you are creating value using your skills. But for you, it's like a walk in the park, a piece of cake. But other people think there is magic happening. If they ask you, how are you doing it? You said, doing what? You are just so surprised that there is some value getting created. So this is the levels of mastery, guided to magic. And this is for the skill. And there could be for other things also. I won't go into this much detail. I'll just pick one or two things, like experience. Whenever you are learning something, you are gaining experience. That if you go meta on it, as you are learning, how you are learning it, that also can be converted into value. like how I became an entrepreneur, how I became a product manager. The way you got there, the experience, the journey itself can be created into value by blogging about it or creating a video series or something like that. But you have to be conscious of it. And even here, it's plural. Skill and experience are plural. Next is resource. When I say resource, again, it's plural. Resource can be starting with very simple to explain the tangible resources like a piece of land to intangibles like an IP or a framework or anything. Those can be used to create value in other people's lives. Then is vision. This is vision, and next one is singular. Vision is like, can you help someone plot their next journey better than they can plot themselves? Because you are good at seeing the world. You know what is happening. Suppose COVID has happened. Pre-COVID and post-COVID are very different. But if you have thought very deeply about COVID and see how the world will evolve, can you apply that to a particular instance in a particular person's life and tell them, I know how things are going to evolve in this world because after post-COVID, but in your particular life, for your particular situation, maybe you should capitalize on this. Not think of it as a problem, but you think of it as a new set of possibilities. Next is called insight, which is seeing what everybody else is seeing, but noticing something that most people won't notice. That's an insight for me. This is part of my one of my books that I've written called Outsee. So Outsee, the concept is, if you want to be outstanding, you have to out execute other people. If you want to out execute, you have to outthink. But how do you outthink? The fundamental framework that you need to outthink is you have to outsee. You have to see what others are not seeing. That's when you get a competitive advantage. If you use the skill and sharpen your skill, you become a merchant of possibilities because you are seeing things that others don't. Then you are like a Pied Piper of possibilities. You are bringing possibilities like left, right, and center. Next one is connection. It's plural, which means we all are connected to many, many people. But are you consciously thinking about what one connection brings to the world that can be given to another connection, and return they get something back? So it's a mutual win connection. And can you make that meeting happen without having to get a broker fee kind of thing? You should not do it because I connected these two people, so I'll get some cut in the something from that they're doing. But you should do it because it is the right thing to do. That's how you can create value in both people's life. This one is easy to miss. It's called empowerment. Sometimes as you grow older, you forget that you are in positions of power because of who you are. Let's say you belong to an association, even as simple as your alumni association. Just the fact that you belong there, you have some egalitarian power in there because you are equal when in your alumni association. That could generate new possibilities for someone else that you met. But if you're not conscious of it and you're not proactively doing it, it's an opportunity wasted. Like that, you can think about, do you belong to a Rotary Club, Lions Club, whatever it is, you have so many positions of power, but it gets sort of diluted because you don't use it. So now I also want to tell you, what is the key difference at levels of mastery? It's the incremental cost to create value. At the lowest level, the incremental cost is very, very high. As you move up, you'll see that the incremental cost shrinks. So the more you move towards magic, the easier it is to make something magical happen in other people's lives. Next is to plot things. You can look at how your life is today. In some areas you can be in the fun category. Some other areas you can be creating magic, and somewhere else you are not in dabbling. But it's always good to plot where you are, because only then you can think, this is where I am. Where can I go next? And I also want to, because there are plural, like except vision and insight, everything is plural. So it's like a multi-layered graph that you will have for you to think through it. So if you see the forms of exchange, we talk about skill, experience. There is some of you might have already observed. It creates an acronym called service, which was by design, that at the heart of every meaningful form of exchange is service, not sales. Because when you serve people well, sales happen almost automatically. And then how do you become better at this? Because it's a new framework, all of you got exposed. But how do you become better at it? You just start applying in other people's lives. Because some close friend of yours, your brother, sister, whoever, you start thinking, if there is different skills that this person has, how do they stack up? If they want to plot their own, plot Tom's graph, for example, how does it look? Jen's graph, how does it look? Rick's graph, how does it look? Then finally you come back to your own graph, and then you start thinking, this month, or just you pick 1 month or 1 quarter or anything, where do I want to make a difference in my own life? Let's say I want to move in terms of one of my skills is, let's say writing. I'm in the fun category. I want to move to the game category, game level of mastery. So you pick one or two or three things and you start working on it. I usually have what is called as 4-week sprints, because anything lesser will not give you enough time. Anything longer, let's say it's a year-long program, then you give up in the middle, and then you find a brilliant excuse. It's such a good excuse that even you will believe it, but even after knowing that it's an excuse. The 4-week sprint is very simple. You just pick 3 forms of exchange. I always say, if you have never done this, you always want you to pick something from a skill, connection, or resource, or it could be 3 skills that you want to improve upon. And then you choose the uplift magnitude. First of all, you'll plot your own journey there, where you are in the level of mastery. And then how do you want to jump 2 levels, 1 level, whatever it is, you know your discipline level and the commitment level. So pick it carefully, that if nobody should pick from, I'm like a guided level of mastery and I will become magician in the 1 month. That's not going to happen, right? So you pick it reasonably, and then you pick the right resources, so that you should never start a upgrade journey without having the right resources, right tools. Otherwise, you will give that as an excuse, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to ask for help. So mentors and books comes to mind. I really like having a mentor in this case, because for all of us, we know that we break promises that we make to ourselves with tremendous ease. That we tell ourselves, I need to do this, I will do this, and then you break it as if there is no tomorrow. But if you have a person that you revere and respect, like a mentor, then you make a promise to them. It will be hard for you to break it, because you know that even when you're giving them an excuse, you know it's so lame, and you know that they know it, so you just feel like, you know what, I'll just do it, rather than I don't want to face that have to face that conversation. So that's why I always choose mentors, because just before I have to report back, if there is any pending things, I'll just finish it, because I don't want to give an excuse to them. And then raise the stakes. This is all very important. When something becomes important for you, then you do it. If it is not that important for you, even if you promised anyone, you won't do it. So for you to raise the stakes, whatever you are choosing, you think about what is the derivative of that. Like, for example, if you want to become good at writing better, right? So basically, you think of what could come out of it, and will you create a book, or will you create a series of blog posts? Will you start writing a column in some Inc. magazine or something? You start looking there, and then you make a promise in the derivative end. So basically, you want to become a better writer. You make a promise that you'll finish writing your first book in 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is. Because for you to finish that, you have to become better at writing. So the means to an end is automatically taken care of. And then, if it is the first sprint, not every time that things will go really well all the time. Your goal is to get feedback, tweak the process, and repeat the cycle 2 more times. In a year, if you do this 3 sprints of 4 weeks each, automatically, I can guarantee, because I've done this with other people, I can guarantee that you will say at the end of the year, you will say, this was a great year, I can't wait for the next one. So there is one more thing, that this is a hack. So whenever I present a framework like this, you will see that you are not used to doing this. So generally you remember this quote from someone who I don't know who said it. They say easier said than done. So whenever you listen to this, if it becomes universal, I always ask people when somebody says, yeah, oh yeah, it's Raj, it's easier said than done. I said, hey, John, do you know who said it first time? Is it God? They said, no, it's not God. Oh, it's some other human being, right? He said, yeah, it's some other human being. How do you know that he was being truthful there? And then I end up in a conversation, philosophical conversation, that it has to appear as truth to someone first. And they said it. And this is convenient excuse. It gives a convenient excuse for you to skip hard work. Because if you say easier said than done, it's over. Nothing else to do, right? Because you can this can be a universal excuse for anything to not doing anything, right? So suppose I give you another framework. You just go from easier said than done, and you start saying easier done than said. It is as ridiculous as the first one anyway, because it's just jumbled up words from each other. But once you start feeding your brain and saying easier done than said, what you are telling again and again and again to the system is execution is fun. High concept thinking is not that fun. Execution is where all the magic happens. Like you can have the best of the best ideas in your life and your profession. Unless you execute it, nobody has ever got a Nobel Prize for having what they could do. It's always what they have done. There is nobody who said, man, we should give him a Magsaysay award because he might want to do this. He might do it. He might, something can be done in the future. It's always for the past. And if you go with a mindset of easier said than done, you know that you have an excuse up your sleeve. Anytime you want, you can dish it out and say, wow, this is easier said than done, right? But this is the road less traveled. When you say easier done than said, magic happens. So Vasudev, so far so good?
Rajesh, fantastic stuff. I've written a lot of notes. I'm going to be grilling you shortly. But continue with
Very
this.
good. So I was, with your permission, I want to see, I want to use a framework that I have, which is anything that anybody teaches is always at the level of a concept, right, Vasudev? It's never going to be, unless you put in somebody's context, the magic does not happen. Like I can tell you the best thing from some of scriptures or anybody else's scriptures, but it's still at a concept. But only if it gets applied in somebody's context, only magic happens. So we can do this 5-minute exercise, all of you, we can do it all from your homes and everything. But right now, when it's super fresh in our memory, shall we apply it in everybody's context? Because I shared a lot of things, but we don't know who resonated with what. We have no idea. But let's say there are 50, 60 of us. Everybody gets to know what resonated with whom and how they are planning to apply it in their life. It will be super helpful for everyone else. Like I always look for leverage. Like, can everybody take a small incremental cost so that everybody collectively benefits really, really big? Does that make sense?
Please do it. But remember, it's in the context of a 4-week thing, or am I getting it wrong? I mean, it has to be substantial enough. Sorry?
It is right in this, whatever you will
I
see
got that. It has to be implemented over a period of 4 weeks is what I'm saying. I think that's what I understood.
Correct.
Go ahead. Yeah. So take us through, please. Take us through.
It is very simple. If you all go to this site called yourtakeaways.com/claim, and then you just enter this passcode, it'll ask you 3 questions. What was the biggest takeaway from this? What will you do? How will you use it? And how will you hold yourself accountable? And if all of you answer honestly, magic happens, because everybody else will boost everybody else's like the level of commitment. And all you have to do is you can do a social login, and I'll just keep this here because it's easy to do, and it'll take 3 minutes. And what's in it for you? What's in it for everyone? Many times people ask me, I want the copy of the slides. As soon as you hit submit, the copy of the slides will be sent to your email.
Okay. So those words, the takeaway that you just said, I'm going to discuss that with you in just a minute. But I'm just going to this thing like everybody else. Guys, I urge you all that participants to please take up Rajesh's very generous offer. Let's do that. 5TLP5U. Okay. Oops.
My philosophy teacher, told me, Vasudev, that
Yes.
lot of times we read books and attend to lectures and we feel good, but we don't do anything about it. And he says it's intellectual entertainment if we don't do anything about it. You have to take action very, very quickly, almost immediately. And I'll share one idea at the end of everybody's filling in this form, how I do it and how I have been trained to do it. And there may be something that everybody else can benefit. It's not my idea, it's my teacher's idea.
Very interesting, Rajesh. Very interesting.
See, the power of reflection is usually underestimated, Vasudev, only because we are always in an always connected world.
Sure.
There is never a lack of stimulus for us.
Yeah.
There is some news, something is coming, there's WhatsApp. The fact that, in fact, if you go to in your office, if you just sit and not do anything, somebody in 2 minutes, somebody will say, hey, Vasudev, is everything okay? You cannot think, you have to be doing something.
Okay, guys, I went ahead and filled it up and I submitted it, and I'm sure the email will be arriving in my mailbox.
Yeah, I saw that there are already 4 people submitted: Srinivasan, Kapil, Vasudev, Satya. So if you, there are 7 people who have submitted. I'll show you very soon. I'll just display that page here. Just by reading what everybody else is saying, you will benefit equally or more than when you attended this lecture.
Interesting. Okay.
So, in fact, is it
okay, guys? Shall we move on now? In the interest of time, Satish, Rajesh,
yes.
we keep. This has been fascinating. So let's go on. Let's go on then. All right. So Rajesh, have you reached the end of your presentation? Is there something more that you'd like to share with us?
This is the end of it, and then now I'm ready.
Okay, fantastic, Rajesh. So first of all, thanks a lot. Very interesting stuff. I'm going to first of all encourage people to go ahead and ask any questions that you'd like to ask. I was looking at the sheet, but maybe there's a technical problem. I'm not being able to see any questions yet. Okay, so why don't if somebody would like to go ahead and take the initiative of sharing their thoughts, that would be fantastic. Any questions?
So many things in the chat.
So I see over here a lady called Sumana. Sumana is asking, why is insight a singular? I'm not too sure I understand the question, but perhaps you understand it, Rajesh. So why don't you take
Insight, see, Sumana, it's very simple. The skill is the ability to find insights. Insights is plural for sure. You'll find more insight. But your mind and the mind has to be trained to get insights. That is the skill. That is singular skill, which is at any situation you can see things that others don't. While you are looking at the same thing that everybody else is looking, you will have the ability to find an insight.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Thanks a lot, Rajesh. I'm sure, Sumna, you found that insightful. Okay, play of
In
words
fact,
there.
Sumana,
Okay,
if you
so
want me to send you the book out, see, it's not published, but I'm happy to share it with anybody that wants.
all
I
right.
researched on that for several months on how somebody can find an insight, because everybody is looking at the same thing. How does one person look more, like find more?
Okay,
I'm happy to share it.
fantastic. Okay, so Rajesh, let's have a little fireside chat kind of a thing. I have a few points to make over here. So
Yes.
first of all, as I recall my feelings when I went through your biodata and all the things you've written about and your overall thought process, I was trying to understand you as a person, which is not easy, but I tried. Okay, so I think there is first of all a sense of whatever framework that you have made, which I sincerely appreciate, the uplift, the philosophy of all that, going through magic, creating magic. I would first make a humble submission. It is a very altruistic, very noble kind of a way of going through, and it's different, unusual. But since you talked about things like giving more and receiving value by, getting, giving more, I saw that as an altruistic kind of philosophy, which incidentally is counter to the overall philosophy of, the dog eat dog or the rat race or whatever you have, where there's tremendous stress on ambition and so on. In fact, oddly enough, somewhere along the way, you also said something which I thought maybe I misunderstood, was slightly jarring to me, which was what is in it for me? So I thought that question was a bit of a contradiction to the overall philosophy of wanting to give more. And out of 100 people, you give 80 people forget it, but 20 people get something, and there's a tremendous value to that. I hope. I'm sorry, this thing's sorry. I hope my observation is making sense, Rajesh. Okay, if not, let me know. So the first point was about that is that conclusion slightly right? Because there are a couple of subsequent questions I have.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
here is
please.
the thing, Vasudev, that you should, there is, my friend Adam Grant wrote a book called Givers and Takers, right? So in this, he says, if you give without taking care of yourself,
Expectation.
then you might lose
Okay.
capacity to give more, right? There should never be
Oh,
a stage,
interesting.
because otherwise it's like even in the airplanes, no, they say put the oxygen mask first on yourself
First.
before,
Yeah.
right? Because
I
you
see.
cannot be self-sacrificial while you are giving. You have to give in such a way that you are not losing capacity to give more as you are giving. Right?
Okay.
So,
Right. So,
yeah, go ahead.
okay, I got you. I think this is a very good clarification you have given. So that helps me to sharpen my mind. But I will say something. Your talk is actually very timely, Rajesh. I'll tell you the reason why. The past 3 or 4 months, everybody here, all the participants, me included, Sai, Tarun, Menaka, all of us have suddenly had a system shock in a way, right? And suddenly we've been forced to get off the treadmill, if I may use that term, right? And it has given us time to reflect and think and all that stuff. So in that sense, I would say this COVID time has helped us to get back to basics. And from a philosophical point of view, of course, you're a philosopher, and that word philosophical is used loosely, but I think it gives us time to think about what is life for us. And again, in the capacity of this whole leadership festival, right? So are we trying to, augment our definition of leadership by asking people to think about the uplift and see that, altruism, of course, as you said, with some consideration that what am I getting out of it, is probably a very, very good thing at a time when we're all under common stress and so on. And here I want to make a point. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I do want to say something. The other day I read something about ethics, okay? And it said, your true value is judged by what you're doing when nobody's watching you. Okay, something like that. I think you probably agree with that philosophy, right? So the thing that was talked about was the shopping cart, right? Now, for example, when you go to a supermarket or grocery store, you take the shopping cart, and on your own, there's nothing that you're going to get out of it. You take the shopping cart and put it back in the place where all the shopping carts are put together. You're getting my point, right? So can you correlate these points a little bit? Can you take a moment to do that while I see if there's some other questions for you?
Yeah. In fact, it's like this. I have another framework called No Insight Left Behind. They say no child left behind, no insight left behind. So no insight left behind is very important to remember that as soon as you get an idea, right? Any idea, they read your book and they get an idea how to make your organizations better. Suddenly they got some idea.
Some
Now,
idea, some thought.
they say, okay, Vasudev has shared a brilliant idea, but if it is not used, it's valueless. You can get some brownie points in a coffee conversation with somebody else, make them look smarter, but that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, sure,
But
sure.
if you say, I read Vasu's book, now I'm going to use it. Now, the problem comes. Where will you use it? Because you don't have a big organization probably. What do? You start looking at who will benefit that may not have read Vasu's book, but I read it. I can share it with them. So in the process, they amplify Vasu's work and they learn how to take an idea and extract value out of it, even if it is not their project. What is the skill they are developing? They are developing the skill of value extraction.
I see.
Which
Okay.
you will never go out of style once you learn how to extract value from anything, an idea, resource, connection, anything. Because what is the world looking for? They pay for value creation and value extraction. And once it becomes your DNA, you cannot even stop it. As soon as you get an idea, you immediately start thinking, who will use it, like that.
Could we even think of it as a kind of a legacy you're leaving behind, a footprint in the passage of your life? That value that you're talking about. You have given your generation. Huh? You agree?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because we leave the footprint of the value that we created. Nothing else, no? Because we are gone anyway. In the long enough timeline, all of us are dead and gone anyway. But what
That's shocking.
value we create, right?
Okay, so actually this is fantastic, because I see a couple more questions that have come up, and I'll go ahead and rather than think about, you and I can philosophize and argue and have a nice discussion soon. Okay, we'll do that. I promise. That's a promise I'm making to you. Okay, so that's in public, so we'll make sure we do that. So there's a question here from Mr. Pranav Bhatt. He was very happy about the session, and he says that if not a mentor, okay. How else does one keep promises made to oneself? Which I think is a very nice question. Okay, and I have an additional add-on to this question, but let's go ahead and first answer his question in a few short words. If not a mentor, how does one keep promises made to oneself? Please go ahead.
Yeah, there are many ways, Pranav. But first of all, it's a very good question, because all of us struggle with this. We make a promise to ourselves, we forget it, right? So I'll tell you how this happened with, in this case, it's a mentor, but you can replace the mentor with somebody else. Like one of my mentors, his name is Ofer Breyer. I'll type his name so you can look him up. He's a phenomenal person. He lives in Israel. He knows that I write books very easily. And he asked me, hey, during this Christmas holiday season, are you doing anything? I said, no, we're not going anywhere. He said, why don't you write a book about how to write a book fast? Because other people struggle with it. I said, okay, I will do it. And then he said, how long does it take to write it? Because you don't need to research, because it's your own process, right, Raj? So how long does it take? I said, we'll take 120 hours. 120, we don't have that time. We only have 10 days. So it has to be less than that, because it's only. Then I said, how about 60 hours? Half of it. Like it's 1.5 weeks. He said, okay, let's settle on 40. How about that? This is what is happening in a mentoring conversation. Let's settle on 40. Then I thought, Ofer is being ridiculous, unreasonable. How will he know if it took me 60 hours or 80 hours? I'll say 40. Okay, done. Ofer 40. We make this. He said, very good. Now, what happens is that when you finish writing the book and you said, I finished it in 40, what if somebody don't believe it? I said, what are you having in mind? He said, I want you to record every single minute you touch the keyboard. I want you to record it on video. And your goal is to send it to me every single day. Now I am stuck. Look what happened from the promise I was making. And here is what happened. I wrote a book called Writing Zero in 11 hours, 19 minutes, 30,000 words, because of the nudge from a mentor and the framework that he created. You see the power of the mentoring. So if you don't have a mentor and you don't want to work with a mentor, you can also make a public promise. What did Vasu do just now? He openly said, Raj, we are going to have a conversation. I'm saying it in public. Why? Because now we both are committed in a way that we would not have committed if it was an email exchange. So
Perhaps,
you,
yes, exactly.
right? So now we say, what do we do? Well, we can't give an excuse,
So
right?
now watch out. Okay, good.
So
So
that's
so
the
again, in the interest of very nice. Thanks. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Rajesh. Very well said. I need to go and take some more questions because we're also
yes,
running short of time. Please don't mind. Okay.
yes.
So I'll try to gather a few questions together. The first one is, where do you get stuck most of the time? Now, it's not as vague as it sounds. I think that's a great point. Most of us, in fact, have grand plans, have everything, but there have thousand reasons for us to say no, or tomorrow, or later, or whatever it is, So that action, and in that context, also, I remember you mentioning that execution, and I'm paraphrasing here. Execution is the acid test, perhaps, of leadership. Right? You can be, all of us are intelligent. We can generate PowerPoint presentations, look smart, but execution is the thing. So, and therefore, to be executing and get unstuck is something to think about. So take a quick answer to that, because I have 2 or 3 questions more. So, in the
Yeah.
interest of time, please compress your answer. Yeah, go ahead.
The good news is, I put a link there called my upcoming book in the next 3 weeks is called Smart But Stuck. I studied this problem of why smart people get stuck for 7.5 years.
Wow.
And it'll be there, and I'll send you the link and the sneak preview. There's a lot of stuff in the open, so you can read it. There are 7 kinds of people getting stuck. The first, only one kind is good. It is stuck when you're pursuing a big project and you are getting stuck on the way because your skills are not matching to the what is needed for the project. Any other kind of getting stuck is bad. Stuck in the weeds, stuck at the door. I can send you lots and lots of things.
Okay. Interesting. So the other thing, how do you measure the level of mastery for different skills? And adjacent to that, this question is from Anish Nayak, and Miss Himla Shetty. She's also asking a question about the challenge will be there could be different levels here, personal as well as professional. I think she's trying to ask if this framework can be used across both. So first of all, mastery. How do you measure? Is it measurable? Perhaps there's a problem with us. Our whole management ethos keeps saying measurability, accountability, dashboard. So maybe that's entered our lexicon. I don't know, Rajesh. What do you think? Okay, but still, it's a fair question. I'm just pointing this out. Go ahead.
Yes, it is definitely measurable because there is when you are very young, it is difficult to measure because there is no reference point for it. Like if you are just in the first year of your work, there is nothing that is set that will say, okay, compared to last year, what did I do this year? The moment you are in your second year of work, you already know. Last time to create a requirements document, it took me 10 days. I did it in 7 days. I'm always looking at the universe's feedback for your actions. But there has to be a reference point because otherwise it's become very difficult because there's no real metric. So as soon as you have a metric, let's say you write one book, how do you measure that you are becoming better? You look at the next book. How long did it take and how much was the impact? So once you have one frame of reference, it is easy to measure. And the Hemla's question was personal, professional, except within the family, you can apply it anywhere else. Because why it's difficult to apply it in family is because the emotions run very high in the family. You cannot start talking about value exchange and the wife will kick you out anyway. So except there, you can apply it anywhere else.
Okay, one final question from Aditi. She says, how to tune ourselves and how much we need to exceed and where to pause. Perhaps you mentioned along the way that pausing from time to time is important. Maybe I didn't catch that, but that's probably what she's implying. So how do we tune ourselves? How much we need to exceed? So is this being self-critical and saying that what I perceive as my limit is actually self-contained, is the lowest common denominator? I can do more. Perhaps that's the implication. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Aditi, it's a very good question. Where to draw the limit, right? So basically, we all know that we can do a lot more than what we are doing right now. That is for sure. It will take a long time to reach our limits because of how we think. When we say, I want to get things done, we always think, I have to get it done. Isn't I, me. That means I have only 24 hours. I need to spend some time with my family. I need children, husband, brother, sister, mom, dad. But I have only one person. Once we change that frame to, if I have done enough good for enough people, there's a reservoir of reciprocation waiting for me that's untapped. then your resources become unlimited. Why some people get a lot done is because they start movements. They are not thinking, I will do it. They will say, this movement will make this happen. Once you start thinking the movement thinking, amazing things will happen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I think we are coming to a precise end of this. So any last words, because I know you're a philosopher as well. If any, but I want you to move from philosophy to execution. So any one piece of quick suggestion that we can start implementing, something we need to do.
I'll tell you one of my favorite books. I'll read out a quote from there. The book is called Fierce Conversations from Susan Scott.
Okay. All right.
So Susan is a dear friend, and the book is unbelievably fantastic. And the entire book can be summarized into very quickly one sentence. I'll share that sentence. And if you forget everything about my speech, if you remember only what Susan's speech, that's really, really good. And the sentence goes like this. Given that, while there is no guarantee that any single conversation can change the trajectory of your life, career, business, or a relationship, any single conversation can. What is the conversation that has your name on it? Once you deeply understand it, you will never have a conversation where you are not fully present. Never. Because you never know. This conversation may be the one that can change the trajectory of your life, career, business, or a relationship.
Okay. On that note, I'm going to catch you for this, Rajesh. I think let's invite everyone to connect with you on LinkedIn and change their lives. What do you say? Okay. So guys, please reach out to our wonderful, charming guest, Mr. Shetty. Go ahead and send him, LinkedIn request, because I'm sure there's a lot we can gain from him. And honestly, I think this is actually quite transformational. As I mentioned, the times are such that we really need to sit back a little bit and think through, philosophize. Nothing wrong with philosophize, and rethink about how we are working on the rat race. Your talk has been very nice. I like the utility for the uplift framework, the different things you have to say. Guys, please go ahead and visit his website as well. And Rajesh, as a small token of appreciation, here is a nice certificate of appreciation for you. I don't know if you can see it. Okay.
Yes.
It's something on behalf of IPL. We're extremely grateful that you could share this fascinating stuff. My view, Rajesh, is your talk is a success if, and I think this is true, it raises more questions than it answers, which is the point. To be able to think a little bit more, consider issues, and I think I'm sure you would also invite people to even challenge your framework. That itself is a very good thing. But I think the insights were tremendous for your liberal, expansive view of how things could be better, how we can improve as individuals and be altruistic and give rather than receive, because in fact, ultimately, it's useful for us to do so. So with that, I'd like to come to the conclusion of this fantastic talk. Thanks everyone for attending. It's very, very nice of you to take the time to attend. I hope it was useful. Do write to us with your feedback. Menaka, may I now hand over the stage to you?
Thank you so much, Vasudev. Thank you, Rajesh, for such a thought-provoking session. Thank you so much. I'm sure our attendees enjoyed the session. Thank you again. And here is my announcement. The best question for the session was Pranav Bhatt. Pranav, congratulations, and we will reach out to you with your gift. And please scan the QR code and give us your testimonials. And so that was it. That was tonight's session. And so anyways, before we wind up, so we are concluding today the Product Leadership Festival 2020 that started in April. The festival team at the Institute have thoroughly enjoyed going through the highs and lows of putting together a festival of this magnitude. We have had 30 plus amazing sessions by global practitioners. We have gone through a gamut of emotions, talks that give you goosebumps, to technical issues and worries, etc. We are grateful to the awe-inspiring speakers, wonderful moderators, and you, our faithful attendees, for making this festival the biggest virtual product leadership conference in the world. So the exciting part is that we are continuing the festival, the Insight 2020 series, the webinar series. So you can find the URL to register and check out the webinar series on the chat window. So do sign up and join us there. So with that note, that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Rajesh, thanks. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye,
Have a
everyone.
great evening, all of
Take
you.
care. Take care.